From Wisconsin Public Radio and PRX, it's To the Best of Our Knowledge. I'm Anne Strange-Champs, and we are coming to you this week live from historic Turner Hall in downtown Milwaukee, Wisconsin. And I want to begin this hour with a story about a city and a lake and a river, a story about water, and for that, we're going to need a boat.
Watch your step, coming aboard. This is a Coast Guard certified small passenger vessel. We have life preservers, we have fire extinguishers, we even have oxygen on board because it's primarily a scuba diving charter boat. Go ahead, climb right on.
This is the sound of the Lender, Captain Jerry Geyer's boat. And our entire crew climbed on board last week for a trip down the Milwaukee River. It was freezing cold. We call that spring in Wisconsin. And the boat was pretty crowded.
Just throw Halima and Mark in and record the splashes.
And the scream.
That sounds more like a chuck shot.
There's something magical about seeing a city by water. Historian John Gurda came along with us, and he thinks that the river is one of the best things about Milwaukee.
My family and I, at least a couple times a year, put our canoe in down at the Southwater Boat Launch, canoe as far as the North Avenue Dam, and just pull up at Rock Bottom or Water Street Brewery and just have dinner.
But it wasn't always like that. Like a lot of American cities, when Milwaukee started, people used the river as both sink and toilet. So by the turn of the century, it looked and smelled like an open sewer.
It was also all the horses and mules on the streets. Tons of manure that were just plopping onto Milwaukee streets every day of the year. Next rain would kind of wash that down. By the 1870s, the river is docked and dredged, so the current was pretty much put to sleep. The hot weather, the stuff would just sit here and cook. So you had a virtually unendurable stench, and by the 1920s, there was an engineering group that actually proposed covering it and creating on top of it what they called a Grand Boulevard.
Like, maybe if we just build a road on top of it, we could just forget about the river altogether. People. We are not good at thinking about the long-term consequences of how we deal with natural resources, or even the short term. Take this story.
The Great Bridge War of 1845 was fought between east and west sides over the issue of access. One warm night in the summer of 1845, the West Siders took axes and hatchets to their end of the Chestnut Street Bridge, collapsed it into the Milwaukee River, and East Siders wake up in the morning, they find they can't go to the West Side, so they cut off the West Side's bridges to the south. So now no one could go anywhere.
Thank you very much. Well, it's the Lender standing by above Wisconsin Avenue Bridge, standing by for an opening.
So speaking of bridges, Milwaukee has the kind that have to be open and closed, which takes a while. So we headed down to the cabin, where Captain Jerry told us about all the crazy shipwrecks in the harbor.
We have a ship that exploded. We have ships that ran into each other. We have one wreck that hit an iceberg, left Milwaukee, got as far as Port Washington, hit an iceberg, started sinking. People got off, started rowing, and the ship followed them. It didn't sink till it got back to Milwaukee.
And then he told us about the other kind of diving he does, right here in the river. Turns out people are always accidentally dropping stuff in the water, and then when they want it back, he's the guy they call.
There was a lady who was sitting there, the table's out there, and her little black clutch purse fell in the river. I charge $150, whether I find it or not, you know. And I said, it can't be worth that. And she said, yeah, it is. My passport's in there. I'm from Canada. I want to go home. But it's all by feel and luck.
All by feel? You can't see?
No, you can't see. It's black. It's pitch black. Right here, it's 20 feet. Now we got to make a big turn here.
I love that story. Partly, I think, for the sheer Midwestern toughness. What kind of person willingly dives into 20 feet of cold, dark water and then feels blindly around in the muck to find something that's been lost? And also because that's kind of what Milwaukee did. In the past couple of decades, the city brought that dead river back to life.
It's night and day. It is not a pristine trout stream, but there are trout here, and there are salmon here. The story of how this river and the lake have come back from just being horribly abused. I like how it's a testament to the resilience of nature and finally our capacity to reinvent ourselves and our attitudes toward waterways. No, that's in a world where there is often not much hope. The water story here really is one that is full of hope.
That was a great day. And I want to say thanks on behalf of the whole To the Best of Our Knowledge crew to Captain Jerry Geyer and to Milwaukee historian John Gurda. And by the way, keep an eye out for John's book coming out in June, Milwaukee, A City Built on Water.